Good morning, this morning, everybody. Like I said, Brother Henry was ecstatic. He wanted to teach a class, and he had studied and everything. He was telling me everything we had done, but I guess he called me, texted me this morning, said he was feeling sick. He had a sore throat and a headache, and I hope he's doing fine because his wife was also sick. So hopefully that he'll do fine and he'll be here with us. So I know he wasn't going to be here. He didn't say he was going to come, and so I figured he was coming. But anyway, we'll go with the lesson this morning. This morning is going to be called 10 Spies of Faithless. It's going to be in Numbers 13, in chapter 13 and chapter 14. Yeah, Numbers 13 and 14 chapters. Before we start out, I want to give what is faith. According to Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1, it says that faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. And then it says here, in verse 6 in chapter 11, of Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6 says, and without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. So we're going to talk about the 12 spies this morning, Numbers chapter 13 and 14. It's going. By now, the children of God of Israel were in the desert for nearly a year. So they knew God has promised Abraham the promised land, and then to Isaac, and then to Jacob. Then, when here in chapter 13 of Numbers, they knew that they were going to go and inherit a land and milk and honey. So it's not that they didn't know they're going to get it, but they hadn't seen it. They hadn't seen this land. They were told they were going to go and inherit it. Remember, they were in slavery for 450 years by the Egyptians. And Moses got them out of there. They saw the plagues. They saw the parting of the Red River when they crossed. And God was with them the whole time. They saw a lot of miracles. But we're going to see here that this one, they're not going to believe. So God tells Moses to send men to explore the land. Verse 1. So he takes one of each tribe, the leaders of each tribe, there are 12, and sends them to this land to go and explore the land. But he tells them, on verse 17 of chapter 13 of Numbers, he says, when Moses sent them to explore Canaan, he said, go through the Negev and onto the hill country, see what the land is like, whether the people who live there are strong or weak, few or many. What kind of land do they live in? Is it good or bad? What kind of towns do they live in? And are they on wall or fortified? How is the soil? It is fertile or poor? Are the trees on it or not? Do your best to bring back the fruit of the land. It was a rich season for the first ripe grapes. So they went out and explored the land from the desert of Sin as far as Rehob toward Lebo and Hamath, and they went up through Negev and came to Hebron, where Aham and Sheshai and Talmai, the descendants of Anak, lived. Hebron had been built 7 years before Solomon in Egypt. And when they reached the valley of Eshcol, and they cut off the branch bearing a single cluster of grapes, two of them carried on a pole between them, along with some pomegranates and figs. That place was called the Valley of Eshcol because a cluster of grapes the Israelites cut off. And at the end of the 40 days, they returned from exploring the land. And we're going to see here that 12 went out and 12 came back, exploring the land for 40 days. So they come back, verse 26, they came back to Moses and Aaron and the whole Israelite community of Kadesh in the desert of Paran, and they reported to them, and the whole assembly showed them the fruit of the land, and they gave Moses this account. We went into the land to which you sent us. It does flow milk and honey. Here it is, here's the fruit. But the people who live there are powerful. The cities are fortified and very large. We even saw descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites lived in the Negev, and the Hittites, Jebusites, Amorites lived in the hill country, and the Canaanites lived near the sea along the Jordan. Then Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, we should go up there and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. But the man who had gone up with him said, we can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are. And they spread among the Israelites a bad report of the land, and they explored, and they said, the land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there are great size. We saw that Nephilim there, and the descendants of Anak came from Nephilim, where we seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we look the same to them. So we see what do we see of these 12 coming back? What did they agree? All 12 of them.
Good land.
Good land. They had seen good land. It was milk and honey. And what? 2 of them said, which is Caleb here says, we can. The other 10, we can't. The question is, where is their faith? If they saw the same thing and they agreed, they saw the land, the milk and honey, the land, and they saw all these inhabitants in those parts of the land that we're supposed to go take over, because who's going to go with them? Who's in front of them? God. Who is stronger than God? Nobody. So if they saw all these miracles, why they could not see that God was going with them? He was going to do the fight for them. He was going to destroy everybody. And they're going to go and take this land. But 10 of them said, no, we can't. 2 of them said yes. And my question here is, if we were in their position, let's say we were the tribe of the Israelites were there, and 10 of them say we can't do it, and 2 would say yes, where will we be at? Were we going to listen to the 2, or we're going to listen to the 10?
To the 2.
I hope we would listen to the 2, because the 10 did a bad thing. Because what they did was inside the people of not believing that God could do it. And that is very, very, very bad, because then what's going to happen to them is when he says here first the land of milk and honey, it's talking about the agricultural land that was going to produce crops. Because they brought those big grapes. They had a pole that carried grapes back. That means that the land was fruitful, and they had water, they had trees. And look at this, God was going to give them a land they were not going to work for. Everything was there. The houses, the land, probably the livestock, everything was there. So they were just going to go, take those people out of there, and then they will go and possess the land. Simple, right? I mean, to us, it's simple, right? But to them, it was impossible. It was impossible. They said, we can't do it. And look what happens in chapter 14. That night, all the people of the community raised their voices and wept aloud. All the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron, and the whole assembly said to them, if we only had died in Egypt or in the desert, why is the Lord bringing us to this land only to let us fall by the sword? Remember this part. If we only had died in Egypt or in the desert. Be careful what we wish for. Be careful what we say. Because God is going to. It says, why is the Lord bringing us to this land only to fall by the sword? Our wives and children will be taken as plunder. Wouldn't it be better for us to go back to Egypt? And they said to each other, we should choose a leader, go back to Egypt. Then Moses and Aaron fell face down the whole Israel assembly gathered there. Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had explored the land, tore their clothes and said to the entire Israel assembly, the land we passed through, explored is exceedingly good. If the Lord is pleased with us, he will lead us into this land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and he will give it to us. Only do not rebel against the Lord. Do not be afraid of the people of the land, because we will swallow them. Their protection is gone, but the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them. But the whole assembly talked about stoning them. Then the glory of the Lord appeared at the tent of the meeting to all the Israelites. And the Lord said to Moses, how long will these people treat me with contempt? How long will they refuse to believe in me in spite of all the miracle signs I have performed among them? I will strike them down with a plague and destroy them. But I will make you into a greater nation, stronger than they. And Moses said to the Lord, then the Egyptians will hear about it. By your power you brought these people up from among them, and they will tell the inhabitants of this land about it. And they already heard that you, O Lord, are these people that you, O Lord, have seen face to face, that your cloud stays over them, and that you go before them in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. If you put these people to death all at one time, the nations who heard this report about you will say, the Lord was not able to bring his people into the land he promised them to know, so he slaughtered them in the desert. Look what they're trying to do. Now they're trying to stone them because they are telling the people, yes, we can go and do it. God is with us. If God is with us, who can be against us? That's what the Bible says. If God is with us, who can be against us? No one. And yet still, they were trying to stone only Moses, Aaron, Joshua, and Caleb. And they said, okay, let's get a leader. Let's pick a leader here. Let's go back to Egypt. Why would they want to go back to Egypt? Fear. But remember, they were in Egypt for 450 years in slavery. That's all they knew. That's all they knew. And it was in their hearts going back to Egypt. They would rather be slaves than to be free men. And that is terrible when they take Moses out of the picture. Remember, Moses is the leader. He's the one that took him out of there. And yet they wanted to go back to Egypt. So God says, okay, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to destroy him. That's what they want. But look at Moses as being the leader of the Israelites. Look like he is a mediator between God and the Israelites. Moses says, no, don't do it. God, don't do it. Because then all the nations are going to know, hey, this great God took them out of Egypt, and here they are. He kills them in the desert. So Moses mediates between God and them and tells God, no, please don't do it. God knew what was in Moses' heart. He was preparing him. He was seeing, okay, here's a leader. He's standing for his people. He's fighting for his people. So God knew what Moses was going to say. And he said, okay, I will not do it. I will not destroy them. Look what happens. Verse 17, now may the Lord's strength be displayed, just as you declared. The Lord is slow to anger, abounding in love and forgiving sin and rebellion. Yet he does not leave the guilty unpunished. He punishes the children for the sin of the fathers for the third and fourth generation, in accordance to your great love forgive the sin of these people, just as you have pardoned them from the time they left Egypt until now. And the Lord replied, I have forgiven them, as you asked. Nevertheless, as surely as I live, and surely as the glory of the Lord fills the whole earth, not one of them who saw my glory and the miraculous signs I performed in Egypt, in the desert, but who disobeyed me and tested me 10 times, not one of them will ever see the Lamb I promised an oath to their forefathers. Not one who has treated me with contempt will ever see it. But because my servant Caleb had a different spirit and followed me wholeheartedly, I will bring him into the land he went to, and his descendants will inherit it. Since the Amalekites and Canaanites are living in the valleys, turn back tomorrow and set outward to the desert along the route to the Red Sea. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, how long will this wicked community grumble against me? I've heard the complaints of these grumbling Israelites. So tell them, as surely as I live, declares the Lord, I will do the very things I heard you say. In the desert, your bodies will fall. Every one of you 20 years old or more, who is counted in the census and who has grumbled against me, not one of you will enter the land I swore without lifted hand to make your home, except Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and Josh, son of Nun. As for your children, that you said will be taken as plunder, I will bring them in to enjoy the land you have rejected. But your bodies will fall in the desert. Your children will be shepherds here for 40 years, suffering your unfaithfulness until the last of your body lies in the desert. For 40 years, 1 year for each of the 40 days you explore the land. You will suffer for your sins and know what it is like to have me against you. I, the Lord, has spoken, and I will surely do these things to this whole community, with the community which has banded together against me, and they will meet therein in the desert here, and they will die. So the men Moses had sent to explore the land, who returned, made the whole community grumble against him by spreading a bad report about it. These men responsible for spreading the bad report about the land were struck down and died of a plague before the Lord. And of the men who went to explore the land, only Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, survived. And when Moses reported this to the Israelites, they mourned bitterly. Early the next morning, they went up over the high hill country, and we have sinned, they said. We will go up to the place the Lord promised. But Moses said to them, why are you disobeying the Lord's command? This will not succeed. Do not go up there, because the Lord is not with you. You will be defeated by your enemies, for the Amalekites, the Canaanites, will face you there, because you have turned away from the Lord, and he will not be with you, and you will fall by the sword. Nevertheless, in their presumption, they went up toward the hill country, high hill country, through near Moses, though the ark of the Lord's covenant moved from the camp. And the Amalekites, Canaanites, who lived in the hill country, came down and attacked them and beat them down all the way to Hormah. Look what happens. That is a sad story. You know, what they said, we're going to die here in the desert. Well, that's what got them. For 40 years, their kids wandered through the desert until all those people that grumbled against God died. Can you imagine? 40 years wandering, and they could have gone quick into the promised land. But for their disobedience, God made them do that. So all of them failed in the desert. And if you have read the scriptures, it is so powerful when you read that their clothes and their shoes never worn. When I read it, I said, that's impossible for me. That your clothes and your shoes never worn when they were traveling. But did God ever forsake them? No. God is true to his promises. We can take that to the bank, as we say. He is true to his promises. What God says, he will do. It is up to us either to believe it and act on it, bless you, and act on it, or don't believe it. disobedience, you know, they sin against God and still God forgave them, but it's still paid for their sin. And it's all like today. When we sin, we suffer the consequences of sin. Yeah, God, we can ask God for forgiveness. Yes, God forgives you. But your consequence of that sin is still going to follow you. And so that's what happened to these people. So what can we learn about these people? Why do you think they put that in their hearts? They could not see that beautiful land they were going to get possessed. Why do you think they didn't believe? Who's the one here in this earth that blinds us? Satan. Satan. And Satan was at work with these people. He was at work with these people, making them not to believe, making it impossible to go and conquer those lands. God was with them. God was with them. He had done so many things through the scriptures from the beginning that I marvel and I said, to me it's impossible, but to God it's possible. When I see when God parted the Red Sea and they walked in dry land, to us it's impossible. How can you part the whole sea and the people walk in dry land? And yet it was done. So what do you think about grumbling? You see the sin?
Yes.
Yes. Is it bad when we grumble against each other? Yes.
I think our words can curse us when we watch what you said, kind of deal.
Yes.
So watch this. Everything you complained about, it's about to happen.
That's going to happen. That's why I said, be careful what you wish for, because, God can do it. And they sentence themselves to the sentence.
Yeah.
By the words.
Well, they had zero faith.
Zero
They had
faith.
no faith at all.
And look what happens when Moses was in Mount Sinai receiving the law. And the people were there, and Moses was taking a long time, and the people said, what happened to Moses?
Patience,
And what did the
no
first thing they do?
patience, no patience, no faith.
No patience? Yeah. What is the first thing they do?
Build an idol.
Make an idol. Guess why? They were idolater worshippers. That's all they knew in Egypt.
They needed something to worship.
They needed something to worship.
They didn't want to-
And so what do we think now? Are they walking by sight or they're walking by faith? Sight.
That's
And the Bible says that we should walk by faith and not by sight. If they only would have walked by faith, they would have entered right away. But they were looking through their eyes. That's what I'm saying. It is impossible to please God if we don't believe with all our hearts that He's there. Brother.
David, in the book of Philippians, in chapter 2, verse 14, it says the same thing. It says, do everything without grumbling or arguing,
Amen.
so that you may become blameless and pure, children of God without fault in a warped and crooked generation.
Amen. Because we can grumble against each other, or we can grumble against what the Lord wants us to do. So we say, why? Why would I have to do it? Remember when I'm pretty sure my kids, one of them here, remembers when we were at home, I tell them, do this, and they probably ask, why? Right? Your kids ask you, why? Why do I have to clean my room? Why? Why do I do this? Why? Right? And we as grown-ups can do the same thing to God. You can ask God, why? Why do I have to do this? Why? When God tells you to do it, do it.
You know what this lesson does for me?
Uh-huh.
It helps me realize that the Egyptians, they were slaves for so many years, and then whenever a good Christ follower came and tried to present all this to them, some of them were complaining, some of them were definitely not believing at all that this was going to come out. And it puts us in the same boat as trying to be giving the message to those that are slaves to sin. And what it does for me is help me realize that it's not in my time that those people are going to convert. I've got to be out there planting the seed and let God do all his thing. And a lot of times as Christians, we get overwhelmed or discouraged because they're not transitioning quick from the world to God in our time. So we're like, oh, forget y'all then. Y'all do what you do. And that ain't Christ-like at all, you know? That's what it does for me. It helps us it reminds me that God's doing all his things.
Yeah, he does it his own time. So how would you characterize a grumbler? How do you characterize a grumbler? That's what it says here.
How do you correct a grumbler?
Yeah, characterize. Grumbler.
And who grumbles all the gripes, I guess you could say all the time.
Would you like to be hanging around them?
No. They're never happy. Never happy.
Never happy, and you.
I think we all have that coworker.
Yeah.
Someone that's always complaining.
Yeah, you don't want to hang around people that always grumble, always complain. I mean, you want to hang around people that are positive, not negative, right? That's how I feel. Okay, so
Well, you get sucked into it. You get sucked into the two. Never for long, you're like, all we do is gripe and complain. That's all. That resolves nothing, too.
I have
Just
worked
miserable.
with people like that. They're always complaining. Why do we do this? Why do we do that? Why do we do that? And then they don't do it.
There's no change there. Yeah.
They don't do it.
My problem is when people, because I work sometimes around people that are always grumbling and they just want to be heard. And I'm the worst. When you're grumbling, I'll walk away and then don't ignore me. And I don't want to hear your junk, you know. I get tired of all that because you can get you can get sucked into it, you know, and do all that mess and become part of that. And people look at me and I said, hey, you're ignoring me. And I just don't want to listen to your junk, you know. Just do the job, quit complaining. It's got to get done anyway. You keep complaining and move on. And if they would have done the job, it'd been done already, you know. But they spend hours
Complain about it.
and they not only do they talk to me, and if I'm not going to listen to them, they'll talk to somebody else, and finally they'll catch somebody. Oh, finally somebody with a heart that'll listen to me. I ain't got no heart for that stuff, you know. But I mean, it seems like sometimes I'm always going through that stuff, and I walk away because I get so boiled up, and I know who I am. I get so boiled up inside, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to say something wrong. And they're like, quit ignoring me. No, I just don't want to listen to you, John. Let's just get it done. I'm just got to get done. Let's do it and move on.
I mean, it's depressing when you're hanging around with somebody that's just grumbling and complaining. And I used to work with a lady like that. And she was always like that. When I would see her come, I would avoid her and go somewhere else.
Very, very depressing,
Yeah,
even here in the
is.
church,
Yeah.
because we're supposed to be God's people. And then when we reflect our attitudes to some of the clients that come in, they're thinking, man, what church is this? I don't know what they're thinking, you know, but I try to put myself in their shoes and I'm like, hey, you could have been nicer than that, you know, golly. You know, these people don't know God, and obviously we think we do. And, you know, when they come in, we want to be a reflection of who God is, not, you know, we got up on the wrong side of the bed, so I'm going to be mad at everybody in the world.
Yeah.
I've even told some people to leave, you know, go home, start over tomorrow or something, because, I mean, it's depressing.
It's depressing.
It brings you down.
It brings you down.
Especially if you get into that mess, you know, and sometimes you have to, or I have to, because I have to address it. And I said, hey, stop, you know, go home, start over tomorrow.
And what do you think about these promises, that this place that God got for us in heaven? That you promised us?
No complaining.
Yeah? So what do you think? Do you believe there exists?
I think sometimes also, David, we go through all this junk now. But if we hang tight and we finish a race and we're gonna finally rest in peace with our Father, you know, and everything's gonna be okay. I mean, we're gonna be doing whatever He wants us to be doing up there, whatever, you know, but but for now, it's kind of like a test for each and every one of us.
I want to say the same thing. If we put ourselves kind of the Israelites that were wandering 40 years in the desert. We are in this world living. And we're not citizens of this great country. We're citizens of heaven. Okay, so we're still doing like they were doing, wandering around this desert, which is the world, waiting to enter the promised land. And I hope all of us have that faith, that promised land that Jesus went and prepared for us, is there, waiting for us, for each one of us, if we believe and we do what God tells us to do. You know, don't fall short and don't let the devil deceive you by telling you you don't exist. He does exist. Even though we haven't seen it, He does exist.
By
Remember,
faith,
the 10,
by faith.
by faith, the 10, they came back. The 12 that went, the 10 came back. They saw it, but yet they didn't believe. We haven't seen it. But I believe that God has prepared a place for us. And when we leave this earth, or when Jesus comes back, He's going to take the church with Him. And we're going to be with Him, praising Him day and night. If you look at the book of Revelations, it talks about the New Jerusalem. I mean, it's going to be a beautiful place for all of us. You know, you don't want to compare nothing to the promised land that was given to the Israelites. This is going to be more beautiful. But the thing is, we have to believe. We have to believe. And the devil is working hard and hard every day for us to falter, for us to sin, so we can reach that promised land. And it's hard. All of us go to temptations. You know, there's no one of here that we can't say we're going to go to temptation. And none of us we can't say we have sinned. All of us. But the thing is, if we do sin, believe that God can forgive us in Jesus Christ. And then walk again. I always say like a baby. A baby, when he starts to walk, he don't give up. He falls, and he gets up again, and starts walking again. This is the Christian life. You fall, you get up again, walk again. Never give up. The baby never gives up until he gets the walking, and then he starts running.
Somebody needs to share that little story with our little britches, because he just falls and he wants somebody to come pick him up. He don't want to get up.
Well, most babies, I mean, they don't give up. I mean, they get up and then try it again.
Yeah.
So we do the same thing. Okay, let me see here. When living by faith and not by sight, does that mean living by blind optimism? It says when living by faith and not by sight, does that mean living by a blind optimism?
I don't think so.
No.
Trusting God.
That's who we have to trust in God. If we don't trust God, who can we trust?
Nobody.
Nobody. We can't trust a man, for sure. Right? No one. So we gotta trust God. So, okay, how does living by faith properly acknowledge difficulties and challenges that are part of this life? If we live by faith. Living by faith properly, how does living by faith properly acknowledge difficulties and challenges that are part of this life?
When you're living by faith, you realize that God's given you the Holy Spirit to be your helper. And that reminder not only allows you to go to Him in prayer whenever you're struggling, but to be that more, I guess, enthusiastic or spurred on whenever you see those prayers being answered.
Okay. Remember Peter? Is that Peter? When Jesus was walking the water, and he said, I want to go to you. I want to do the same thing you're doing. And he gets out of the boat and starts walking on water. He was doing fine. Until he saw the waves coming out, getting bigger, and he started sinking. Why?
Because fear takes your faith away.
He lost the eyesight in Jesus. And we can do the same thing. If we lose that eyesight to Jesus, all of us can fall. So it's so important that we give that eyesight to Jesus Christ. He's the one that can help us through the Holy Spirit, as you said, to help us in our lives to continue serving Him, to continue worshiping, and never get tired. Remember, when you read the book of Malachi, how the Israelites, the Levites, which were the priests, they were giving God the worst of anything. They were not worshiping the way God wanted to worship because they got tired. They got tired. And I tell you, brothers and sisters, never get tired. You know, we feel like we're getting tired. Hey, talk to someone. We're brothers and sisters. We can talk to each other to get encouragement, to lift us up, to get us going again. You know, sometimes, all of us, sometimes we have those moments that we feel like, hey, is it worth it?
Yes.
Is it worth it following the Lord?
Yes.
Yes.
But I know that sometimes the devil puts in our mind, telling you, hey, there's a better life out there. Enjoy it. Do what you want to do. But we always come back to our senses, and God is telling us, no. It's only Satan talking to you. You know, he wants all of us to fall. He wants to take all of us with him. You know, that's his first priority. He wants all of us to fall and not to be following God. Satan wants to take us away from Christ. That's his purpose. That is his purpose. That's why he works in us. Sometimes he works inside the church too. You know, so we can what? Get disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we get mad at a brother or sister for something they say, or something happens in the congregation and say, okay, that's it. I'm gone. I'm not going to do no more. That's it. That's what he wants. So I hope we are not the grumbling kind, that we are more uplifting, encouraging one another instead of pointing our faults. Because all of us got faults. None of us are perfect. Only Jesus Christ is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but encourage one another. You know, because we're here. That's what we're doing. Encouraging one another so we can continue fighting this good fight, just like Paul did. You know, so this morning, brothers and sisters, when I read it, when I was reading, I said, what would I have done if I was there? And if I put myself in their shoes, if I would have listened to the 10, or I would listen to the 2 other persons that wanted to go. You know, we never saw it. We never saw the land. But who would I follow? Would I follow Moses, Aaron, Caleb, or Joshua? Or I follow the other 10? They got what they deserved. They got killed. They didn't believe. So, okay, why would you leave that which is secure, comfortable, and familiar? Let's say hometown, career, routines, etc. Or why would you live with that which is secure, comfortable, or familiar? This here, living the story. So, for why would you leave that which is secure, comfortable, and familiar? Hometown, career, routines.
What or why?
So for what? For why would you leave that which is secure, comfortable, or familiar? Remember, Abraham. It comes to my mind real quick. God told him, leave the land where you're at and go.
And he did.
You know, and he went by faith. So if God would tell us, do this, we would do it.
Yes.
I saw brother Eddie, you remember Eddie and Annika? And one time we talked, and I asked him, you know, why we should go on a preach over there. He said, brother, God is calling. And he was going by faith to go and preach over there where he's at. You know, so when God calls us to do something, don't question it, just do it.
It's kind of like a parent with kids. If I tell my kid to do something, I expect them just to go do it.
Yes.
If God tells us to do something, He expects us just to go do it, not complain.
Yes. Amen. And he's our Father.
Right.
He's our Father. So, well, I can get to finish. We're here, but anyway, thank you for being here, and I hope Brother Henry will be here next week, or maybe tomorrow, whatever. Let me give you the one for next week. The one for next week is going to be called, Michael is going to be, that's David's wife. It's going to be the judgmental. It's going to be 2 Samuel chapter 6. Okay, Samuel, 2 Samuel chapter 6 will be for next week, and good brother Sarah's going to take that one, right? Okay. We'll put you down. Okay. Well, then God bless you, and we'll see you, God willing, next week. Pray for each other.